Okay, story time before we get into our chat with our friend today. It was not that many years ago. I'm probably even embarrassed to say how many years ago, but it wasn't that long ago. I had one of those moments where I realized that I thought I was doing all the things. And I just want you to know right now, I'm air quotes, right? All the things spiritual, right? I had my Bible open, I was reading, I was playing worship music, I had a sermon playing in the background, all the things, and I still felt tired. Not disconnected, just quietly worn out. And I remember thinking, Jesus, I love you with everything in me. Why do I feel like I'm running on fumes? And the thought that came to me was it's possible to be spiritually full, right? And starving. Not because we don't trust Jesus, not because we don't love him, not because we don't believe, not because we don't have faith, but because sometimes we can be doing a lot. We can be doing the most, consuming a lot without actually nourishing our souls. And I think a lot of women could be living there right now, trying to be faithful, trying to be steady, trying to carry everything, to keep it all together, holding everything in their hands that's been entrusted to them. And somewhere along the way, your faith has just started feeling like something else you have to manage instead of someone you get to be with. And if your faith has been feeling that way, if you've just been a little tired underneath, you just know that you feel empty, you're not alone. And if you have felt just exhausted spiritually, you're listening, you're reading, you're trying to be faithful, but you still feel hungry. Your soul still feels hungry. I want you to know this conversation is not going to be about trying harder or trying to get everything right. It's going to be about coming back to what actually feeds your soul. So, wherever you're listening from, if you've had a long day, I just want you to know that you're safe to take a breath here. You don't have to prove anything, and you don't have to perform your way into his presence. You're already invited, and you already have a seat at the table. And I just want to say a quick prayer for us today. Jesus, thank you for the women who love you and love your word deeply. Would you just let this conversation nourish them, the ones who feel tired, and remind them that their identity does not begin with striving, but with belonging, that they already have a seat at your table and their identity is already daughter. Just help us speak honestly, hold space with grace, and leave room for your spirit to move. In Jesus' name, amen. Now let's step into this conversation together. Are y'all ready? This could be tender, but it's going to be a really fun one with my dear friend, Amy. Hey, friend, the wildly hopeful one. Sit with me for a minute. There is always room here at this table, and Grace has a seat with our name on it, ready to meet us right in the middle of our stories. Welcome to Wildly Hopeful. I am your host, Brandy Dawson. This is a space for honest conversations about faith, healing, and becoming the woman of God that He is shaping us to gently be. And around here, we keep it real. Sometimes it's lighthearted and fun. We might laugh, we might cry, and yes, sometimes we're even talking about faith and our favorite jeans in the same breath. Because who doesn't love Jesus and a good pair of jeans? But even in the laughter, these conversations are rooted in something deeper: faith, health, healing, and wholeness. The kind of conversations where we can both be honest and hopeful, seen and known. Around here, we talk about the real things that shape us, the questions we wrestle with, the seasons that stretch us, the doubts we carry, the grace that keeps meeting us along the way, because life is rarely just one thing. Because sometimes it's hard and it's holy. Sometimes it's joy and it's grief at the same time. Sometimes it's light and sometimes it feels weighty. Sometimes there's peace and sometimes we're just learning to see beauty in the middle of the chaos. But friend, this is our real life. So think of this space as a grace-filled table for messy faith, where honesty is welcome, hope is still alive, and you never have to pretend you have it all together. And if you've ever found yourself listening and thinking, wait, is it just me? Girl, me too. So wherever you're listening from today, you're driving, walking, folding laundry, brushing out your lashes, or just taking a quiet moment for yourself, I'm really glad you're here. Around here, we're learning to live wildly hopeful, even in the middle of becoming. Welcome back to Wildly Hopeful. I am so grateful you're here because today we are talking about spiritual nourishment, identity, and what it actually looks like to live from belonging instead of striving. And I could not think of a better person to have this conversation with than Amy Seiffert. Amy is a speaker, pastor, and Bible teacher who has spent nearly 2 decades helping women rediscover grace in a world that constantly pushes them to perform. She's the author of Starved: Why We Need a Spiritual Diet Change. Grace Looks Amazing on You, and most recently, Your Name is Daughter, where she brings us back to the heart of the gospel. That identity is not something we earn, it's something we receive. She served in ministry with Crew, teaches widely through YouVersion, and currently serves on the pastoral team at Soma City Church. And what I think I love the most about Amy is that she doesn't come with pressure, she comes with invitation. In today's conversation, we're talking about what it looks like to be spiritually undernourished without realizing it, how we can fill our lives with good things that still don't truly satisfy our soul, and how God gently leads us back, not with shame, but with grace. And this conversation is honest, it's grounding, and I really believe it's going to feel like a deep breath for you. So, wherever you are, you can exhale here. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to perform your way into God's presence. You're already invited. And we are so glad you're here. I absolutely love Amy's Bible Minute with Amy on Instagram. If you know her there, I know you already love her. She's also in seminary at Denver Seminary, the women's leadership cohort where I attend. She's going to be graduating this summer. I'm so proud of her. Okay, hold on to your hats if your hair is dirty. We are bringing it all today. I am so excited for this chat today. I just need you to know, I have literally been reading like all the different kind of questions that I had written out and kind of going back and looking at everything, because I'm also like excited to talk with you just about like all of the things that have formed you, like the whole spiritually starving and our identity being daughter. Like it wasn't just coincidence, I don't believe, the way the Lord kind of gave you the things that He's given you in order, like how they all go together. So
Like
as we're chatting, if I'm asking questions and you feel like you want to lean into something more or more into, you just go there. Like
okay,
however the Holy Spirit leads you, I'm perfect with that.
it's great. I was
All
just
right.
listening to
Well,
your podcast, so you're a fun
oh,
one. Yeah, I was like, let's go. Yeah.
yes. Oh, it'll be, you know what? I wish I was the fun friend though. I say that all the time. Like, I wish I was the one that could stay fun all the time, but I will be like literally just in the middle of having the most random conversation. And all of a sudden, it'll just hit my spirit. And I'm like, oh, we're going to go deep for a minute. Like, just completely forget about how fun this was going to be. So now I'm like, okay, we try to be lighthearted, but like theologically rich, and it always goes deep at the same time. So, but
Yes.
then I try to make us laugh and end on like a funnier note and not people just being like, I'm so glad I listened to this episode.
Right? Come up for air.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Like I need to breathe.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll get started. Okay, friend, I'm so excited, Amy, to have you here with me. This is my second episode since we changed the name of the podcast to Wildly Hopeful. So I am so excited that you are here for a Wildly Hopeful chat. It just feels right with a
That's
conversation
so
with you
fun.
today. I
Thanks.
know. And before we jump in to all things Amy, and where God has led you, I want our friends to know. I just kind of really want to start with your story, wherever you want to take it back to, who you are, where ministry kind of began for you when you started being formed, and where writing began. Because when I read what God has written on your heart and the voice that you have for such a time as this, it seems like so much of what you write about is lived experience. You talk so much more about lived experience, not just theory. So I just kind of want to sit in that for a moment and tell us kind of where all this began.
That is fun. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I'm like, where do I go? Okay, so I grew up in a Catholic household, and my grandma was sort of my spiritual mentor who loved God. And but I remember sitting there when I was a little girl in Catholic church and thinking, why is Jesus on the cross up there?
Yeah.
Like, well,
Yeah.
like just my little brain, like, wait, didn't he rise again? Like, why? What's going on? And then we moved and I met some friends who went to a Protestant church and invited me. And it was a wild experience to me.
Yeah. I can.
Everybody,
Yeah.
everybody came in with a Bible, first of all. Usually that was just for the priest bro up front.
Yeah.
And there was just a lot of like chatter and hugs, and people were excited to be there. At least for my little Catholic experience, it was like go in somber, you sign of peace. So that's a moment of connection. And then you leave. This felt so much more communal, and my whole self lit up of like, oh, I didn't know this is how you could practice your faith.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I started to go with my friend a lot. We would have sleepovers and she would take me to her church and I really liked it. And then fast forward into high school, a friend had been praying for me to go to Young Life camp with them. I don't know if you're familiar with Young Life, but
Hmm.
high school ministry. And so I went to camp for the week. And that was the first time the fullness of the gospel made sense to me. When I
Yeah.
was 15, I was like, oh, okay, that's why Jesus is on the cross. And I had this pretty profound experience on the last night of camp where it's like I felt the weight of my sin like on my shoulders sitting
Hmm.
by the lake. And I was like, Jesus, I need you. Like, I want you in my life. And I literally felt like 50 pounds just lifted off my little body. I don't have many experiences like that, but that one was just a moment of like, okay, there is freedom and there's lightness with Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I traveled into college and I got involved with a ministry called Crew, which I just really loved. And it was the first time that I saw women and men teaching either together or separate up front. And I was like, oh, because at the church I was going with my friend, it was only guys up there. And I remember thinking, can girls be like, do that? Because in my
Yeah.
little self, I was like, I want to do this. So I started to see women doing this, and that sparked something in me. And then I saw Beth Moore teach for the first time, and I was like, that, can I do that?
Yeah. That's what I want. That's
Yes,
exactly what I want. Right. Can I
yes,
do that? Yeah.
yeah. And I remember even saying it. I was in a Bible study in my 20s, newly married. And when we started to do this Beth Moore study, someone asked some kind of question. I don't know what. And I'm sitting there with like, I don't know, 12 women. And I'm one of the youngest. And I was like, I kind of want to do what Beth Moore is doing. And there was just sort of like silence, like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah. That's a really cute idea, Amy.
Yeah, like she's a dreamer, like
Yeah.
just but there was something that God was stirring inside of me. In fact, I went to school for elementary education because I knew I wanted to teach, and I thought the only way to do that was in a classroom with small kids. Yeah, so that becoming a believer and God stirring the teaching desire in me and the gift, that was all like starting to blossom in my 20s. And I started to write. Like I loved literature. So I was writing, I was blogging early on because that was like what you could do. and, and the
That was the one
writing,
place where you could share your voice, right? Like you could share
yes.
what you had written. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could put it out there and people would read it, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and then this was kind of a pivotal moment. My pastor. I was in a church that was, there were women on staff, but there was no women teaching. There was no such thing as a female pastor. Like I hadn't seen that. And my pastor, my lead teaching pastor, called me up and he was like, I just mad respect for this. He's like, I don't know what to do with this theologically, but I feel like God is asking me to have you teach like a sermon, which I just think is amazing because he went against what his like scholarly brain had learned in his seminary track, but the Holy Spirit was speaking to him. And so he followed the Spirit, even though it just didn't line up.
Yeah.
Which I think is really, like, I always thank him for that.
That is so beautiful because, especially like you said, when you've seen a woman up there teaching for the first time, especially if that isn't the role that we've always been in, right? I mean, some women just grew up. This is what they've done. This is what they knew. Like I have a similar experience. I didn't grow up in that. And when I knew the Lord was calling me to teach, and even when I heard the word preach, I was like, wait a minute, like, is somebody else in the room praying? And maybe like I just kind of overheard like what you were telling them. Like, I don't know if that was really supposed to be for me or not, because it just went against the norm. And especially, for a man to be able to stand up front and to look at you and be like, I don't really know why I'm doing this. And the wrestling that he had to have undergone to do that. Yeah. And that is, like you said, just like such mad respect for him, because theologically in his brain, that was just not what it was. And he was like, okay, so do I go with what I see to be right? Do I go with what I think is right? Or do I go with you because I trust you and I know your voice, right? Like, that is so beautiful to me. And I was going to ask you while you were talking, and this just kind of leads into this so beautifully. I was going to ask you, this was literally a question, like what led you to start exploring stories of women in scripture more deeply when you wrote Your Name is Daughter? Mm-hmm. And once again, I think it just all lines up with the story of where God had been taking you from the beginning of your journey into this. And so now you're standing there as a female and you're like, okay, what do I do with this? I'm sure it just kind of felt natural at that point to start studying. Yes. Okay, what is about women in scripture? What is this thing?
Yes. Yeah. I needed to know what were the women of the Bible doing? I needed to search it out because I always wrestled with this. Preaching and teaching felt like what guys do, and I'm like a weirdo. Like I'm the weird one who's doing like a male situation.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this? And it was always like, it's to his credit. It was definitely like she's under my umbrella teaching. Like the first few times he would come and say, and then it would bring me up. And then he stopped doing it. And he's like, it's fine. Like it was interesting to watch his growth too. But it came to a head for me when our denomination I started to ask about me, could I be a pastor? Like putting my name on the table for some things. And the denomination we're in, like, does not ordain women. You can do like a director's certificate or, like some kind of certificate of ministry. And so that was tough when people were like, I wasn't pushing that, but people were like, what are we? And so then I was like, I got to figure this out because something like I need to know. So yeah, this began the research and I started seminary. And so it was actually one of the projects that we did that I was like, okay, how does Jesus treat women was what I started to look at. But then I just went full blown like Genesis through to the New Testament. Yeah. And it was actually Scott McKnight's book. Did you ever read The Blue Parakeet?
Mm-hmm. The Blue Parakeet, yes, ma'am. Yes.
That was a game changer because the way he described Genesis 1-3, how this is like a description of what happened at the fall, not a prescription of how we ought to operate as men and women, that my brain like exploded. I was like, how come no one has offered this as an option? Like I just had never heard it. And so that, again, that was more like fuel to the flame of like, okay, and so then I started to a whole, like, it's like I opened a crack and a whole world of other scholars and theologians that thought a different way I had never heard of. Like, I was like, who's
Yeah.
Lucy Peppiatt? You know, like Sandra Glenn. Like, there just was a lot that I was like, this is really fun. And seeing like, this isn't a gospel issue. Like, this isn't a make it or break it. This isn't in the Nicene Creed. And so scholars of all thoughts and backgrounds, like really smart people, land on both sides. And so if that's true, I could land over here and it's fine. Like
Right.
really freeing, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to sit in that for a second, because what did that look like in your life as you're studying out at that moment? So you're studying what Jesus thought about women and how he treated women and our identity and how he dignified us in
Mhm.
situations to where that was not the norm. I want to I want to sit there for a second, because I want to know, how did that look in your life? How was God shaping you through that to what was going on within you as you're reading what's happening? Because you're mirroring in your life without even knowing, at the time, what's going on in scripture and what these other, theologians and what these other Bible scholars are saying is biblically, like, have you thought about it this way?
Yes.
How was that looking in your own life? Like, were you immediately like, okay, this is making sense? Or were you a little more confused? Or were you like, now I know where I fit?
Yes. Kind of all of it.
Yeah, yeah,
There
that's what I
were
would think. Yeah.
Yeah. It was confusing, but it was also freeing. But I was afraid. I didn't want, like, I even start out with In Your Name is Daughters. I didn't want to be the girl who steps into that boat and flips it over, and now everybody's wet, and they're looking at me like, "What'd you do?" Like,
Yeah.
you turned a finger. Um, but the whole time, my husband, I am reading large chunks to my husband of different things I'm reading. I'm like, "What do you think of like this? I have never seen this." He's like, "That makes sense. That makes sense." Like, it just, so many things made sense. And I remember explaining some like aha moments to some girlfriends that weren't reading along and were just hearing my excitement, but they also were like, unsure. And so I got some pushback. And so that was hard to be like, wait,
Mhm.
I think I have something really fascinating and interesting about us as women and our gifts, which could seem self-serving because it fits who I am, you know? So I'm like, they might be thinking, how convenient of you to find this interpretation for you. But I was like, listen, it's been hidden. I've never, ever, I hadn't even heard of Scott McKnight until like
Right.
7 years ago, you know, like, and I'd been
Yeah.
teaching. So it felt like a lot of freedom, but then I was nervous because I'm like, what do I do with this? Like, what do I do with the fact that I think women can do everything top to bottom in the church?
Mhm.
But I'm not in a
Yeah.
space that
Yeah.
affirms.
Because then at that point, you know, when you're pioneering a way, especially a way around you, when everybody's looking at you like, or not everybody, but there's a camp that's like, are you crazy? Like,
Mhm,
what are you doing? And
mhm.
then there's a camp that's like, yeah, I'm with you and I'm behind you. Like, I can get behind that, but I don't really know what to do with it either. And then there's the camp that's like, girl, there's been this freedom all along, and you just have to step in it. Like, there are these multiple subsets going on, and you're like, okay, well, this is all good, but I really don't even know yet, like, which one I'm in either. Um, but it just starts making sense. And I love to use this analogy when I think about seeing somebody step out kind of for the first time, especially, does it mean it had never been done before? No, it doesn't mean that. Just not in your life, not around you, like
Yeah,
not anything that you knew. And
correct.
so I think about like when God called, Moses to lead the Israelites through the Red Sea. Like, I don't think that was just a common thing for the Red Sea to part for people to walk through. Like, I think as you're starting to do that and you're pioneering that way, there's probably those multiple camps too. Like, okay, what are we doing? Or, when God calls Ezekiel to a valley of dry bones and like, okay, this, commander of an army, like we're fixing to call an army to rise up. And you're like, okay, well, that's cool because there's a lot of like bones. There's just a death all around me and we're just calling life. Like, I don't
Yes.
know that that's always happened before. And
Mhm.
so it's always interesting. It's interesting to see when that plays out, but when you're living it out, It's a completely different story when you're the one that's walking through the new and the unknown, and it's uncharted and looks completely unlike anything that you had ever seen. And like you said, well, I want to teach. I believe God's calling me to be a teacher and I'm supposed to teach this. Well, I think I'll just have to teach kids because that's what we think, right? Like if God's calling me to be a teacher, this must be where I'm supposed to do it because this is kind of what's been told to me all
Yes.
along.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking now, like, not only how did you see you in that moment, but then like it just kind of reshapes and reframes how you even see God in that moment, like
Yeah.
who he is, and not only who he is to you, but now who you are to him and who
Yes.
you are in him. Because there's a lot of, we learn in Christianity, like who God is to us. We
Mm.
don't always learn who we are to him. And so then, especially when we're walking through things in our real lives and everybody's like, oh, well, you're so deeply known and you're so deeply loved. And you're like, really? Have you seen my life? I feel very lonely. I don't feel very loved.
Yes.
Like, and so I think then when we come at it from the aspect, especially from a female, because we're nurturers and we love, not that men don't, but because our model representation was fully man and fully God, and he was a
Mhm.
male. But for us in the world that we live in, women are nurturers. And, when you start thinking about that, it only makes sense for us to start aligning and walking into our identity and us being known as daughter. But then the whole flip side of that coin, again, once you just said, like, are your friends sitting there looking at you like, well, how convenient of you? Because that really would fit the narrative, of what you think God's calling you to do. And it just puts you in a place to where honestly you had nothing to do but study that out, right? Like
Yes.
there was a crack and the door had to open for you to be like, okay, well, you're going to have to show me like what all
Yes.
this is if you want me to be able to do it. Cause I'm sure you were just like, I don't even know.
Correct. Yes. Yes to
Yeah.
everything you said. And feeling like, what does this mean now? And what does this mean for my work? And even what you said about like who God is, I think one of the many mind-blowing things is, and this was from the Bible Project, seeing like the quote unquote womb of God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like, wait, when I started to study when God names himself to Moses, the Lord, compassionate and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in loving kindness and faithfulness. He names himself. And you see that refrain at least 11 times in the Old Testament. I was like, wait, he starts with compassion, first of all. And then the Bible Project's like, hey, look at this root word. Compassion is very close to womb, which is like this defense of the vulnerable, where you have this compassionate, this empathy and action together,
Yeah.
like a mama bear. And so now I'm starting to see this quote unquote feminine side of God that I was like, okay, I'm like him. Like I'm not like him. Like
Hmm.
he is. I'm seeing this side where he longs, Jesus. I long to gather you like a mother hen, like
Hmm.
so. Even seeing more nurturing feminine side, but the fierceness still is there, and feeling like, oh, okay, I'm not a one-sided flat character. Sometimes I've made God that. He's not. I can live in a multifaceted way, even if it doesn't fit, quote unquote, the gender stereotype roles, because God doesn't either. Like,
Yeah.
so just finding a lot of comfort in that. I mean, honestly, because my husband was always cheering me on and was reading along with me and was like, babe, this is who you are. Like, what do we need to do so that you
Yeah.
can fly?
And thank
That's
God you had that support.
it's huge
Yeah.
because some people do not, and you're really stuck with
Hmm.
a gift and nowhere to go. And you're like,
Right? It's like you've given me this gift and I got to unwrap it and now I don't know what to do with it. Like,
yeah,
how do I
yeah,
use it? What do I do with this again?
yeah,
And I love how you said that too about seeing yourself in God. And I think that so many of us, when we find that self, when we find ourselves in that situation where you can finally see yourself, like the attributes in you align with the attributes of who he is and who he made you to be. It's
yeah.
not just for men.
Yes.
And it's not just like, oh, this is who he is. And I think I kind of mirror that. Like I think I resemble that a little bit. Like when you actually know, and I'm thinking about some of our friends that may be listening right now that are like, okay, wait a minute, I've been walking through this. And maybe they just really identified with you saying, there could be a man in their life, or there could be other women, there could be friends, because men are not the only one that fall on that line that are like, no, that's not right.
Mhm.
No, there's no way you're hearing correctly, and you must have demons running all through your body because that is not what you're saying right now is absolutely not correct.
Yeah.
But I think about, we have some friends right now who might be in the place that you found yourself in the beginning of this. What
Mhm.
would you want her to know? If you could just tell her right now, like something, and I don't even want to be a fix of like how to fix her, but
Mhm.
just something for her to know that she's seen and not forgotten in this too.
I would tell her, keep reading, keep going, and be kind and compassionate to yourself on the journey, because there's a lot to learn and unlearn and learn and unlearn. And like, I wish someone would have said that to me. Like, I also wish someone would have said, like, you're okay. You can keep reading as much as you want. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't dangerous. I know you feel like this is dangerous. It's
Hmm.
not. Like, you're not sinning.
Yeah,
Because,
because you feel like it going against the norm. I mean, that's
yeah,
literally,
yeah,
and that's what I mean, literally when I made light of it and made it like it was a joke, but I mean, that was said to me at one time, like,
yeah.
you have to, that's not coming from God. That's of the devil. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, no, I don't think so. But it doesn't feel right. And I love that you just said that. Like it's not dangerous, not doing anything wrong.
Yeah. Like, keep reading, keep learning, keep taking it all to the spirit, like, and to different friends. Like, it was interesting to bounce it off of my husband, who we were in the same, we met in Crew. So we were in all the same ministry, all the same church. And it was like, I'm allowed to read and change my mind also. And that's okay. And
Yeah.
again, it was helpful for me to think, if it's not a gospel issue, if it's not in the Nicene Creed, like this is not essential to the faith, like, and you see scholars on every side of this interpretation, then I can too wrestle with these things,
Yeah.
and still be well within the bounds of living faithfully. Like, my professor says all the time, there are many faithful options in how
Hmm.
to live. And that's very freeing, because I respect someone who is like, no, I've done my work and I believe this on the opposite side. I'm like, okay, we can both live faithfully, and we can honor one another. It's when we start treating one another less than according to our interpretation, that is not honoring to the kingdom. That
Yeah.
is disparaging. We are brothers and sisters, and we've got to learn to be unified, even if we disagree on some interpretations that aren't essential.
Yeah, that is so good that you said that because I mean, it's exactly true. No matter how much each one of us study and find ourselves approved, right? Like, no matter how much we study, there are going to be people that we disagree with. I
Yeah.
mean, the Bible lends itself for that.
Mhm.
And that's perfectly fine. And we can still love one another and we can still respect one another. And it's how we treat each other in that truly reflects the kingdom, right? It
Yes.
doesn't really necessarily matter to you how I've interpreted this. It's how we love each other through
It's how,
that and
yeah.
through the differences and
Yeah.
how we love one another and glorify God in that, and not just, well, I'm right and you're wrong and this is crazy because, for I think about so many of us, and right now, I mean, I'm just speaking to women, but I think about how many of us as women that don't know our place, that we haven't found our place, even in the natural world, much less they haven't identified with who they really are in the kingdom. They just haven't grabbed a hold of that yet and don't know that. And so to finally feel like they belong and have found their place, and
Yeah.
this God that you speak of, this Jesus, this love that you say is everlasting, and it's never ending, and it's a love like you've never known. And I thought I was experiencing that, and then when I talk to people that I love and respect, I've gotten it wrong.
Yeah.
Like maybe I did, maybe I don't know, or maybe I didn't fit in here like I thought I did. And it's just a spiral that is so unnecessary.
Yeah.
It is so unnecessary for
Yeah.
anyone to be led to feel that way. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just so unnecessary. And I'm thinking about when you were writing when you were writing your name is daughter. I don't know. I was going to say my name is daughter, but when you're
Hey, you know
writing your
what?
name is daughter,
Own it.
we all
Claim
are,
it.
right? All of our name. But what surprised you the most in what we've just been talking about with how we are met with challenging situations? What surprised you the most about how God interacted, how Jesus interacted with women? Like, what surprised you the most when you seen that, where you were like, oh my gosh, like this is it?
Yeah, I mean, there were several aha moments. I think one of my favorite was the deep dive on Mary and Martha, and was taught that Martha was a busybody who was concerned with the kitchen and with the things of this world, and Mary was, the spiritual one and concerned about, sitting at Jesus' feet, right? Well, two things were kind of mind blowing to me. One, it's even more profound what Mary was doing than that. Like the fact that Mary crossed social and gender boundaries to sit at the feet of Jesus as a disciple. Like to
Mm-hmm.
sit and to say, I'm going to sit here with the men and learn from the rabbi as if I were to become a rabbi. Like just
Mm-hmm.
wild in the research that I was reading. I was like, okay, that's baller. So she's not just this sweet thing that like slipped in and was like, I want to hear. She was like, I'm plopping here. Like, so that was profound with Mary. But Martha has always been this flattened character, like worry, busybody, fretful. I stopped in my tracks when I was researching Martha, and I was like, wait a minute. This Martha is the same Martha when we see in John 11, when Lazarus is sick and she comes running to Jesus and she just gives it to him. She's like, if you would have been here, my brother wouldn't have died. First of all, she says like the quiet thing out loud, right? Like she's just like
Yeah.
saying it. You're like,
She's like,
okay.
whoop, there it is.
Yeah,
Like,
she's like,
this is
I,
what it is right here.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, I know who you are. And if you would have been here, it would have been fine. Like, I'm disappointed that you didn't
Mm-hmm.
come.
Yeah.
Like, she tells God she's disappointed in him. Like, that's
That's
wild.
south side of the kingdom. That is from the south side of the
Other
kingdom
side
right
of the
there.
tracks, kingdom,
Yep.
girl. Yes. I'm like, okay. So she gives us the permission to say the things, first of all.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, she's not just in this fretful worried category. Like she is a woman of action. Yes, we see it in the kitchen, but we also see it in her theology. So she comes to
Yeah.
Jesus and says that. But and I get chills when I think about this. So there's I think this is in Matthew. I'm searching in my brain. I think it's in Matthew when Jesus asks Peter, and there's Peter's confession, like, who do you say I am? And he's like, you're the Son of God,
Mm-hmm.
the Messiah. Jesus has this same conversation with Martha in that moment. He's like, do you understand who I am? She's like, yeah, you're the Son of God. Like, and he's like, And he then says, I am the resurrection and the life. So what we quote all the time, that idea of Jesus saying, I am the resurrection and the life. Do you believe this? That's a one-on-one conversation he had with Martha that gives us this theological framework. Like, she is smart. She is a
Mm-hmm.
thinker. She's a theologian.
Mm-hmm.
And she has the same exact word for word confession. Why isn't it titled Martha's Confession in John 11? The
Yeah.
way it's titled Peter's Confession in Matthew. Like,
Yeah.
that's what it should be. And that's a turning point. From here on
Yeah.
out, in John, you see the same path that you see in Matthew. I was like, okay, John, you are highlighting this female disciple who is following after Jesus, tracking with him, and claiming who he is. And I just was like,
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah. Because then, like you said, she's a thinker, she's a theologian, and he respected her in that.
Yes.
He respected her in that conversation. And had it not been an appropriate conversation, had he not respected her in that, we would see that.
Yes.
I don't think the biblical writers would have any problem writing for us to see exactly what he meant. And in that moment, that's just another, or just one. It's not. It's one moment of how we get to see him interacting with women. That's like, wow. And like you said, when you're just thinking about what Jesus said, you don't think about the context of that conversation, that was with a woman, that was with Martha, this is what this was about. When you put all of those pieces together, it's like, wait a minute. He
Yes.
respects me and that I can have this type of thinking.
Yes.
He respects me that I can have this type of teaching, that this can be how I'm formed. This can be formative for me.
Yes.
It's okay. Like you said, it's another aspect that brings to life, this isn't dangerous.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
okay. If
Her
the Messiah,
questions. Yeah.
yeah, if she is allowed to bring this type of hardcore question to the ruler of heaven and earth, like if you are able to bring this question and he respectfully has a conversation with you, then you're not doing anything wrong. Like,
No.
that's just my heart for
Yes.
women that are like, I think I belong here, but do I really? And then there are so many voices, like, like we've said time and time again, that are going to fall. But you know what, Amy? It doesn't matter in life what it is. There are voices that are going to fall on both sides of the camp always. And there's not always even really two. There's probably three. There's always one on this side, one in the middle, and one on that side. There's never really just two, right? And so no matter what we're walking through in life, it's not even just what your role is in the kingdom of heaven and how your mission is when you're trying to live on mission for the kingdom. It's going to be in everything. But for some reason, when we start saying, I'm going to live out this gospel message, I am going to be authentically who God has created me to be on this earth, and I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Now, for some reason, all of a sudden, when you start talking that way, that just has this whole like deeper weight. And I think it's because it goes so much more against the grain of what anybody ever thought or what anybody ever thought to give thought to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's one of the things that I want our friends to hear while we're talking today is just that you're always going to be met with opposition in something
Yeah.
because we live in a broken and fallen world.
Yes.
And the world's always going to be the world. It's just going to keep doing the world. It's going to keep doing the
Yes.
world things.
Yes.
And that was kind of one thing because I love, first of all, I mean, I'm in seminary too. We're women that love to study the word, and we are female. So therefore we like to see females in the word. And it's not just because I want to be a feminist and because I want to study women in the word. I love my husband. I have a son. Like, I love men. Women have their place. Men have their place. I'm not just like, power of the woman all the way through, but I love to see other women in the Bible. I love to study their stories and how it represents like the line that we've been formatted from, like, how we have been framed, that this isn't just an idea that we came up with one day, that this was okay because I want this to fit my narrative and I think this is what God's calling me to do. It's okay. No, it's highlighted
Yeah.
throughout scripture
Yeah.
that this is for a woman as well. And that's one thing when you were doing the research, because like I said, it seems like so much of what you have written isn't just because you thought, man, this would be really cool to study. This is like lived. These are lived experiences for you. So what do you wish that other women understood about their place in the story of God? And like, before we even talk about anything they're called to do, just like, not even that it's okay to speak, not that it's okay to teach, but you have a place in the kingdom.
Yeah.
You have an identity too.
Yes. And you have a unique story that God has been writing. And
Yes.
within that story, just like you said, like I feel like I can't write from any other place than lived experience combined with biblical like views and like
Yeah.
how those intersect. And so I'm like, I think when God is writing our stories and we see themes come through, he's doing something and those themes are going to bless other people.
Yeah.
Maybe not on a platform with a microphone, like doesn't have to be that way, but there's ways that your story and the themes of your story are going to build up and benefit the body because the way that he's gifted you and the way that he's writing your story. So yes, the woman listening who might feel like, what is this? I would say even pay attention to the themes. There's some threads through your story. And are there people who need the encouragement from the themes in your life?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I think about it all the time in Luke 8. Like, it just undoes me every time I think about Jesus calling her daughter. And I really like, not only does he just call her daughter, like he stops everything, right?
Right.
Like he stops everything right in the middle to call her daughter. And it's such a small world. I mean, word, I'm sure to some people, but the truth in that gospel right there, the whole gospel in one breath,
Yeah.
like it,
Yes.
it is so much to me and for context, I just kind of led into that. But for anyone that might not might not know that story, there was a woman with an issue of blood that had been bleeding for 12 years. That was truly like an outcast and had been pushed to the side. And she knew that Jesus was there. She knew he was coming. And there's this big crowd, and she wasn't even supposed to be in a crowd. And she did like one better. Like, and this is of course just my like biblical interpretation of this story. I would highly recommend you to read it for yourself. But she just pushes through the crowd. And she's like, I don't care who's here. I don't care who sees me this time. There is healing in his wings. There is healing in the hem of this garment. I have got to get to him. And she just pushes herself through the crowd. Never should have been there. It was completely not acceptable for her to be there. And the one thing that he did in that one breath, by calling her daughter, he didn't tell her she didn't belong there. He didn't do what the world had always done to her. He didn't make her feel like she didn't have a place. He called her daughter. And what do you think, Amy, like beyond what he was doing for her physical healing? I mean, I'm not even thinking about that for a moment, which is just totally huge because I mean, this is 12 years that she had spent every dime that she had and paid. I mean, if you've ever been in a situation like I live with an autoimmune disorder and I have like experience POTS. I have all these kind of like weird symptoms that just show up with my best friend insomnia when she comes to spend the night. Like just weird things just show up uninvited, right?
Yeah.
And so if you've ever been in a situation where you've went to doctor after doctor because you just didn't hear what you needed, you didn't receive that healing that your body needed. So we're not even going there yet, that after
Yeah.
12 long years, I'm talking about like what he did for her and the restoration he did on the inside of
Oh,
her and her body and her mind. Like, what changes do you think in a woman when we see like now we don't have to earn what has been our birthright? all along. We don't have to earn it. Like, we know we can start living from love. Like, what changed? What changed in you when you seen that? And what have you seen change throughout your research in other women in scripture that's
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I mean, I was just fascinated by what that name daughter said. It was like he took her from the outside by saying daughter and saying, I'm going to restore you to the family of God. Like, you
Yeah.
get to be at Sunday dinners. You are like, it's like in it. And when he calls her daughter, he's doing that on behalf of the father, right? And so he's like, I'm your brother. Come to dinner. You get everything I have with the Father, you also get. You are called, you are chosen, you are delighted. He calls you beloved. You welcome aboard, daughter.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
just what you said, the gospel in one breath, which is so beautiful. Yeah, and I think like if we it's this mutuality. Like, if we know that we're his daughter, well, we also need to know who he is and the power that comes from that. So like, if my dad is the president of the United States, let's say, okay, like, I walk into any room with my head held high because of who my dad is. Simple, like, just virtue by that alone. Whether or not my resume is glowing or not, it does not matter. It's
Yeah.
whose I am. And so that helps me a lot, even in situations where I'm like, okay, there's nothing I cannot do if my father calls me to it
Yeah.
because of who he is and what he's doing. He's already there ahead of me anyways. Like, I don't really truly have to pioneer. Like, he's doing it. He's there. I am walking
Yeah.
behind him, and I have this identity that's like, no one can take that from me either. Nothing. No
Yeah.
one can take the name daughter. Like that, I think that's profound too, because a lot of our jobs come and go. Like, if you're only identified by your job, well, it changes, or you get promoted or like, you lose your job, or if you identify just as a mom, like, that is always shifting. But this name
Yeah.
daughter cannot change. No
Yeah.
one can take it. When everything else changes, like, this name does not. Which I love. Like,
I
I want
think
to be
what
a
you
daddy's girl, and my father is the
right?
Most High King.
Yes, that's what I was literally sitting there thinking though, because it has to be said. It goes to be said. It doesn't, and I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but right now that's just kind of what the word that's coming to my mouth. It doesn't hold as much weight or value for us to know that term daughter until we know who he is,
Yeah.
right? Like, I have to know him and who he is to know what my true identity in him means and
Yeah.
what that means for me as to who he is in me. And I love that you said that. Like, we have to know who he is first.
Yeah.
Doesn't really, if you do get hired at a job and you know what your title is, I mean, I don't guess it doesn't really matter what your title is there until you know what that title there means for
Yeah.
you and
Yeah.
what position that holds for you. And that was so good that you just said that, because I think the church itself, I know the world is, but I think the church itself is still learning how to see women based on how Jesus dignifies us, just simply by the way he sees us. Not even what he does, even in restoration. It's just because that's a whole deeper thing in itself. It's just how he sees us
Yeah.
in who he is. And then when you can grab a hold of that, because like you said, you want to be a daddy's girl.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of women biologically may not have ever gotten that opportunity to be a daddy's girl.
Or
And
just like
if they,
bristle at that, like,
yeah,
ooh.
like, make them cringe because their relationship with their dad wasn't great. And now all of a sudden we're like, oh, but there is this relationship with a father that calls you daughter. And they're like, wait a minute, I don't even know if I like this. Like,
Right. Correct.
where does that fit for me if I don't even know if I like this or not? And that's really, really, I think that's a lot more women than what we realize. right? Because we think everybody's family unit, I mean, naively, I mean, you grow up a certain way and your family unit's amazing. And you just think that that's how everybody else's life is. And some women, even to think about a man in general, hurts their heart. But then to call a man dad
Yeah.
or to be called daughter, it's like, wait a minute, you don't know me.
Yeah.
Like you don't know me. And so, yeah, I think I'm just kind of sitting with that for a second because that just hit me when you and I were talking, like how deep of a wound that could be. And if how insensitive that could come across if someone doesn't really know who Jesus is to them, who God
Yes.
the Father is.
Yes. It's really delicate, and
Yeah.
I think recovering, not even recovering, starting over with who the Father is a lot of work. If your dad was absent, was harsh, was abusive, like to claim God as Father can be so overwhelming. Which I even go there in the book. The best picture I think Jesus gives us is in Luke 15 of this father who is his arms never close. They are wide open. He is full of compassion. He's chasing after, he's running toward his son who ran away. He's like, hey, here's my robe, my ring, like my sandals. For us to, because there are so many women in my life where they're like, I can't assign, like, it's hard for me to call God Father. Like, I'm
Yeah.
good with Jesus. And I'm so grateful for the picture that Jesus gave us and that we can actually sit there and begin to imagine that. I'm a fan of therapy. I'm a fan of EMDR. You can picture that and imagine it and see God being a father who is gentle and kind and full of grace and love and mercy,
Yeah.
and is for you.
Yeah. I really, and I mean, like, this isn't just like, Lord, this isn't a show. Like, I'm really sitting here and I'm never at like a loss for words, but I'm just sitting here because I think about that a lot. But I think just in the excitement and the goodness of the conversation and where that has been going as you and I have been talking, and then to think maybe somebody is sitting here listening like, I've loved everything you've said, maybe, or not everything, but I was really following y'all along and everything's really been great until you really just kind of stick that in there, and I don't know, like I'm not tracing on that one as good. And it pierced my heart for a second to think about that and to hold space for anyone in that situation, and just to let you know that's not something you have to rush into, and that like you just said, Amy, like his arms are there and they're always open wide, and he does not despise your questions. And as much as he desires your worship, he will also sit and listen with you in your longing and your questions. And he doesn't diminish those, and they're not small things to him. And I just pray that compassion, that you hear that in my heart and Amy's heart as we continue and even get ready to finish up our chat, that we do hold space for that, and that you're not alone in that, and that can be tender. That can be tender because I think so many women right now, especially in the world that we live in, when in the world itself is just searching for truth. I think everybody just wants the truth. Everybody needs something to hold on to. And women right now, like, it's not hard to get information, but it's hard to get the truth. We can find information on every corner. I mean, we hold cell phones in our hand with multiple, streams of information. And it's just like you're having to sift through what you even hear to, pick out the truth. And, I know that women are hungry. A lot of women are hungry to know where they fit, what their role is, how this shapes me, like my identity, but also even more than that. And you've talked about this many times too, Amy, but like in nourishment, like, we can be we can be reading the scripture and still be spiritually hungry. We can be starving for the word, but even more than that, nourishment for love and a place of belonging and knowing that this love that we're talking about and that we've been talking about is no matter how we've had to perform in our lives and how that performance has shaped us, this is the one area that I can freely say that we don't have to perform. Like our output, what we produce, does not change how much God loves us. He doesn't love us more today. Like my hair is a mess today and I haven't felt great and I'm in sweats. And yesterday I felt like I might have had it together like 10% of my day, but he didn't love me any more
Yeah.
yesterday than he loves me today. And I
Yeah.
don't have to earn that. Like none of us, not just me, not because I'm special. It's any of us. And it's truly at the end of the day, just because of who he is.
Yes.
It's just because of who he is. And I love that. And before, we always finish our chats up with like a fun, like lightning round. But before we go into that, Amy, I want to give you an opportunity to speak to our friends about being stuffed with all the things, but to spiritually be starving and how that does tie in as well with who we are. And I would just kind of like for you to bring that home for us because I've seen you, I watch you teach. I love my Bible minutes with Amy. I love watching you and how you just interpret the word and how you share it. And I would love for you literally, and this is unlike anything I've ever done before on the show. So this isn't anything that I've ever done, but I would love for you to just kind of, I'm in my mind just thinking of the words like bring it on home for us with kind of just tying those things in together and what that can look like with being full, especially full of all the things going on in the world right now, but still not have the truth and be spiritually starving and how that plays in with who we are in him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the biggest practices, because we can be stuffed with all kinds of things, like you said. Even we can feed on scripture, but the biggest practice for me has been to sit in silence, and I'm talking for like 3 minutes, and to practice imagining God holding me, sitting with me, smiling at me, just because I exist. He loves me because he loves me.
Yeah.
Henry Nouwen is like, we are the beloved. Like that is who we are. First and foremost, we are loved. So I think if I were to bring us home, I get the privilege of closing our service pretty often at my church. And I speak the blessing from number 6 over our church, because something is so beautiful about God's face shining upon us, like literally full in the face, smiling at us with the joy and delight that only a father can have, even if their kid is caught in the backyard full of mud doing things they shouldn't do. There is still a joy that's like, that's mine. That's my
Yeah.
girl.
Yeah.
she's a wreck, but she's mine.
You
Um,
know what? While you were saying that, and I did not even mean to cut you off, but I want
no,
to
it's
add
fine.
this in with what you're saying and how you're finishing us off. But like I think about like if we could truly see Jesus walking into the modern church, like you
Yeah.
just said, like how he restores dignity to women. Like this one right here, I know she's a mess. Like she's
Yeah.
been all around the block.
Yeah.
Jenny's been there, but listen, I love her and she's mine. And I love how you're taking this. I did not mean to interject, but I literally
Yes.
just seen that vision when you said that. And I just
Yes,
love that.
praise God. Absolutely. That there, I think for us to even picture God smiling and delighting in us, that's a new idea. And to sit in, like, even if you can find 3 minutes and find some sunshine and let it come upon your face, and imagine that's like God's love shining upon you. He's smiling on you. So I would love to close by with the blessing from number 6,
Yeah.
which is, the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Go sit in that and let his face shine upon you.
Oh, I just love that, and I'm so thankful that you did that. I have been I'm trying to do all things health right now and without adding like 15 more things to my plate.
Right.
And right, how we do that.
Yeah.
But I have started in the morning, like I always, before I even get out of bed, I'm like, Jesus, thank you for the day, and I'm thanking him before I look at my phone. But now I've started adding going outside and sitting in the
Mm.
sun and letting the sun just sit upon my face because
Yeah.
that's all I can think about is the glory of the Lord shining upon us. And I'm like, and for like our nervous system and regulation, and it helps with like our circadian rhythm and not start your day with stress, but there's just something so much more deep in
Yeah.
that than just sitting in the sunlight and letting the sun just shine upon us.
Yes.
And I love that you said that. And that's how we ended that because it's one of the most beautiful depictions for me is to look at the sun, to look at the sky, and
Yes.
just to know, just like see him in it. I just love that. Okay.
Okay.
So, and like I told you before we ever got started, we always go deep on our wildly hopeful chats. And I love that because it's just who we are. And we can have so many facets of us in women. And that's amazing. But I always like to finish with like a quick lightning round. And we end it and it's light and it's fun. Very first thing that comes to your mind, I'm going to have to start adding those, some like trivia music at the end where it's like, doo, 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 doo.
Yeah.
Like, and you can say T for 25, Alex, but anyway. Okay. So first things first, gotta know, like inquiring minds want to know, are you a coffee girl or a tea girl?
Coffee. 100%.
Yes, all the way. What
Yeah.
is your coffee order? Go to.
Um, uh, the one where my husband makes it and hands it to me, is
Yeah.
that?
Yes, that is the exact what I kid you not. Okay. So I'm so glad you said that because my husband makes my coffee every morning, right?
Spoiled. Yep.
Yes, I am a spoiled girl. And I
Yeah.
tell you, and there'll be mornings like he'll think that I'm still asleep and that I'm upstairs and I'm already awake. And I'll call him on his cell phone and I'll be like, babe, is the coffee shop open yet? Have you seen the barista? Is she running late? And he'll just start laughing and he's like, it's already made, dear. And I'm
I love
or
it.
yeah, or he'll be like, "We're having coffee downstairs this morning. Come on down." But I love that you said that because yes, that absolutely matters.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
another one. Who is your all-time, if you have to pick one, favorite woman in the Bible?
That's rude. I
You're not listening. You don't hear me say this. Yeah.
okay. I might go with Phoebe, who
Oh, I
Paul
love
names
Phoebe.
at the end of Romans. She clearly carries the letter to Romans and is probably the first interpreter of the book of Romans, which is money. So
Yeah, I love that. I love that you said Phoebe because not everybody. Phoebe's not a name everybody says, right? And so I love
I know.
that.
Go look her up, y'all.
Right. And what is a story that you wish people knew more about in the Bible that
Mm,
they may not know just how golden a story is?
I am going with Huldah and who she is. I did not know who she was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So until I started doing my homework, I was like, "Who's Huldah? What's happening?" So, guys, go look her up. She partners with King Josiah, and there's a whole restoration of Israel because Huldah gives a word.
Yep. If you could have dinner with one woman in scripture, who would it be?
You are killing me with these questions. I'm like, one.
Just
Um,
one.
I think it would be Martha because she hung out with Jesus and they were tight beats, and I would want to be like, "Tell me everything. Tell me what you saw. What's he smell like? Like, just tell me everything."
Yeah. And tell me how you just so boldly went to him and be like, just lay it
If
all out on the
if
line.
you would
Yeah.
have been here, bro, yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
If you'd have been here, none of this would have ever happened. Just so
Different
you
story.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just so
Girl.
you know.
Yeah.
And last fun one. What is something that you never leave home without? In your
My phone.
purse,
My
your
phone.
phone, your phone. Yeah. That's all of us.
I
That's all of us,
mean,
isn't it? It's the
I
last
did
thing
the
you
other
look
day. I
for.
left without it the other day, and I was like, "Why am I hyperventilating? I have a problem, and I talk about this and starved." But because my kids are home, and so I needed like if I was going to the grocery store. But yeah, that's
Yep.
the truth.
I love it. Thank you so much, Amy, and thank you for just having a heart for women and for the love of the word and just being a voice to help others know who they are and where they fit and that we all have a place here at the table. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks for having me, Brandy. You are a delight, girl. This is wonderful.
Yay. And until next time, we love y'all. Bye. It was such a gift to have Amy with us today. I'm so thankful for the way she has reminded us that God isn't asking us to strive our way back to Him. He's inviting us to be nourished. And friend, if something in this conversation just stirred up in you, if you felt that quiet, that's me moment, you don't have to rush past it. That's awareness. It's not failure, it's an invitation. Maybe your next step isn't doing more. Maybe it's slowing down long enough to actually receive what God has already been offering you. And if you want to stay connected with Amy, you can find her book, Starved. Grace Looks Amazing on You, and Your Name is Daughter, wherever books are sold. You can also keep up with her on Instagram. We'll put her information in the show notes below. And if this episode encouraged you, would you share it with a friend who might be feeling the same way? And you want to know the best way that you can show us love? If you would just take a second, it's free, maybe 5 seconds, okay, to leave a review. Those 5 stars mean more than you will ever know. You can also leave a comment. We love to see them. It helps more women right in the middle of their own stories find their way into conversations just like this one. And before you go, I want to leave you with this. You don't have to fake being full. You don't have to perform your way into belonging. Jesus is not asking you to prove your devotion, He's inviting your presence. So this week, before you reach for more noise, for more content, or for more doing, pause. Even if it's just for a moment, and just be with Him. May you slow down long enough to be nourished, and may grace meet you in the places you've been running on empty. And may truth steady you when you feel unsure. And may you remember your identity does not begin with what you do for Him, it begins with being His. You're already held, you already have a seat at the table. Your identity in Him is daughter. Until next week.